It's spooky season, and this is obviously going to be a review of the sequel to the film that I just dropped yesterday as part of spooky season. So it's Pet Sematary 2. And sadly, there was no John in this film. So unfortunately, there was nobody to guide us through the rules of the film, and it was quite noticeable. But fortunately for us, the film is directed by Mary Lambert. That was my Judd voice. Yeah, if you didn't watch the first video, you wouldn't get it. But if you watched the first video, you got my Judd voice. Mary Lambert's back for this one, which didn't make me too excited because I kind of questioned some of her directorial choices in the first film. And we've also got John Connor, who must be protected. Sadly, he's being protected in this by Anthony Edwards. So, good luck for that. If there was ever a time for a Terminator to come and take out John Connor, it's in Pet Sematary 2. And Clancy Brown. And also, the kid from Big is in this. Jared Rushton. So, cool. Kind of wonder what happened to that kid. He had a couple big movies and then just vanished without a trace. Anyway, Pet Sematary 2, I watched it on Max with audio description. So you can too. Yay! Yas, queen. This is very different than the first film. This film lets you know, like, immediately, right at the top of the film, it's not fucking around. It is absolutely not playing. That opening sequence is possibly more intense than anything that happens actually in the film. Like, I should say I might stumble through some light spoilers. This film is from 1992, so it's 3 years after the original. It's officially 31 years old, so it could have kids. You know, it graduated high school, got college, went and got a job, started pumping out some kids. You know, that's how old Pet Sematary 2 is. So if you haven't seen it, it's probably by choice at this point. For me, it was always kind of like, I don't really need to see that. I don't have really any desire. I'm not sure I'm missing anything. And like, I'm half right. There's some interesting stuff here. There's some stuff that I liked better than the original Pet Sematary, and there's some stuff that doesn't work as well as the original Pet Sematary. There's some stuff that just doesn't really make sense. The first film and the second film were just kind of like both kind of clunkily thrown together, and just kind of a hodgepodge of what works, which is Mary Lambert's style, and probably why Mary Lambert hasn't stuck around. Why, you know, we're not talking about like, oh my god, Mary Lambert, she's been directing for so long, why has she not been nominated for an Oscar? No. It's okay, she doesn't need any awards. It starts out with young John Connor. I'm gonna keep calling him that, by the way. It's not his name in the film, but John Connor sees his mother's on set. His mother's a famous actress. Famous is stretching. His mother's an actress, and she's on set, and something goes horribly awry, and yeah. Then John Connor goes to live with his father, so, or stepdad, or I don't know, whatever. It's some. I can't. I think he's the one that has the dad, and Drew's the one that has the stepdad. I don't know. They were arguing about it, and I was like, "Wait a minute! I thought yours was." So yeah, he goes and lives with his dad, I think, in this small town where the original film happened. You know, big city kid having to live in the sticks. The film doesn't really play with that a whole lot. It's got your like local bully. That's about it. There's a kid in here. That's what Jared Rushton plays. He plays the local douchebag. And so John Connor is his dad is a vet, which is so much more relevant to the plot of the film than than being a doctor. When you have a film called Pet Sematary, it's like somebody in here should be a vet. Oh, look, there's a vet. Good, we found one. Um, and one of the things I liked about the film was it actually kind of went a little bit more into the science of what happens. Are they alive? What's going on? Because with Church definitely seemed like he was just wandering around, like he was all good. But then again, he got examined by a human doctor that was like, I don't know, his neck still feels weird to me. So in this film, we have a vet who's like, damn, this dog survived like a gunshot wound. Like, let me send this blood off to I love that nobody was concerned that with the guy that actually does the shooting. Around here, every time somebody does something nasty to an animal, they always get arrested for it. I always get like a push notification on my phone. This guy, because he is the law. There, like it's like, who's going to challenge him? The sheriff shot a dog. Okay, well all right. I don't know. How do we arrest him? It's a small town. Do we call a sheriff from the other town? No, we're just not going to do anything. Okay, we're not doing anything about it. All right, this is going to be awesome. That's how you make sure that nobody ever messes around with you. Is make sure that the guy who's the biggest power pushing dick in the film, make him the sheriff, so that way no one can step in his path. And that's Clancy Brown. So Clancy Brown does actually a really nice job here. That's one of the things I liked about this film, was that I felt like the acting overall was better than the first film. I love making fun of Judd. Judd is like a special kind of, like, I don't think it's bad acting. I don't think it's good, but I love it. I don't think it's either. I think it's somewhere in its own like metaverse of acting. But here I actually thought Clancy did a really good job playing his role and then evolving it as the film moves along. John Connor is written really weird, so that's an unfortunate task. I kind of wish they had leaned more into, when you hire him to do a film, you're hiring a kid that looks like he's street tough, looks like he has some street smarts to him. Edward Furlong doesn't really look like a country kid, he looks kind of like he's gonna jump up in there and roughhouse, and maybe he knows how to work a switchblade or something. It looks like he's got something going on. And in this film, I don't know, he just is just kind of there. He's kind of like, hey, I don't know if I serve a purpose. Anthony Edwards obviously is Anthony Edwards. He just plays the same role he always plays. This like kind of like nerdy, hapless guy, just whatever. There's some other people in this film. There's a kid, Drew, a little fat kid, that you just kind of feel sorry for all the time, that befriends John Connor when they come to town. And then the film just, I don't know, the things that I liked and didn't like are kind of mixed. They're very interwoven. Like, I like that when things come back, they're not as instantly this, I don't know what they were in the first film. I don't know what the film was trying to suggest the first time around when they had things that were possessed, because they seemed to be possessed at like different levels. Like they came back and Church was kind of functioning pretty well, and then they didn't establish the boy well enough in the first film. They established him too young, and he like couldn't really do many things, and his lingual skills were really down. But then all of a sudden, he comes back from the dead, and he's speaking like in complete sentences and knows how to use a phone. So I just, I'm like, did he gain something? Like, did he level up? Like, so this film, they seem to kind of come back a little bit more to where they were when they left off, which makes a lot more sense to me. And it's more consistent. Like when things come back in this film, they come back more so where they left off. And I think that makes for a much better film, which is weird. There are parts of this that I don't like. I don't like how the film is literally 3 years after the original, and these kids are like, you know, when they talk about the Pet Sematary, they're like, yeah, it's just an old ghost story. It's like, is it? How you didn't travel into the future? Like this film didn't go out of its way to make sure that there's like a massive time jump between the first and second film. So I don't know, dude. Ghost stories usually like end up fading over time. It ends up being something that happened like the generation before you, not 3 years ago. So we needed to really establish that there was a greater amount of time that passed between the first and second films for them to be making statements like that. Also, I kind of thought like there were no, because there's no Judd, there's no person to really explain to them the rules of Pet Sematary, and the rules kind of go out the window as a result. Like with Judd, he was like always like really specific. He's like, no, you got to marry undead. It's okay. It's up to you. I can't do it. You got to do it. That's how it is. That's how it is. So we had our person who knew the rules and was explaining it. Here, nobody explains the rules. They're just kind of really open about it. They're like, yeah, that's the Pet Cemetery, and behind it, that's where that's where the dead comes back. It's just like, they say it kind of like as a joke, but then people are like, yeah, we're gonna do that literally. That's obviously that kid knows what he's talking about, so we're gonna take him at his word. We're gonna use that. Dead comes back there. That's what he said. So, yeah, there's no like, there's no character in this film like sitting in a rocking chair or something that's like, here's the old Pet Cemetery. I see what you need. You know, I would have appreciated a character like that. This film is cheesy enough. It still needs a character to explain the rules, especially to a kid that's not from this town. You know, like, I mean, what does he know how to do? He doesn't know how to dig a grave in a cemetery. Whatever. Yeah, so that would be one of the things. Also, the passage of time. I think they needed more time in the ground in the first film. In this film, it seems like things go in the ground and they're like the kids just make it home, and then like the thing is back alive, whatever it was they put in the ground. They're like, I will be here. It's like, damn, that was fast. So the film, I didn't like that, and the problem is, and the reason why it bothers the ever-loving hell out of me, and why I think Mary Lambert is an absolutely shit director, it's the same fucking director. Like, it's the same director, and there are huge differences in choices between the first and second film. And I understand that perhaps maybe it's a screenplay thing too, but at the same time, you are the director of the film. It is your job to sit there and be like, what am I doing here? What am I doing? Why am I making this sequel? Why was I hired to make the sequel? What is it that I'm trying to do with the sequel to the film I directed? You know? It'd be like if James Cameron just said, fuck it, with Avatar 2. You know, he didn't know. He wanted to actually, like, continue to make his franchise look good. I feel like Mary Lambert was just like, I don't know, whatever. Was sitting there like drinking a bottle of whiskey like throughout the whole production. They were like, how do you want us in the scene? It doesn't fucking matter. It's Pet Cemetery too. Just do your shit. Read your lines. I don't care. you know, and it's just like, whatever. It feels like she didn't give a shit at all, because a lot of the choices that she made in the first film are gone here. She had this weird, like, ethereal, like, vocal selection thing in the first film, but she doesn't do it all here. Um, where people, like, constantly sounded like they were in a dream state anytime they were talking to somebody, you know, from beyond the grave. There were lots of, like, psychic shots where, like, people were just, like, their faces were just, like, coming out of nowhere, and they're like, no! Here, nah, none of that. So, like, all of the weird sort of flair in the first film is totally not present in the second film. This film is much more straightforward with its thing, which can be fine for pacing reasons. I thought it was paced pretty well. The carnage was still there. This is definitely a franchise that I just now assume, if you are in it, good luck surviving. You know, this is not a film. This is not a franchise meant to create survivors. They don't need somebody to keep to unite for sequels. You know how, like, there's always, like, that one person that keeps showing up in every film, like the Sydney or the, you know, whatever of the franchise. It doesn't exist here. They don't need that. They're just like, no, that what unifies us is that little patch of land back there where you can just keep burying things and they come back. There are some other, like, really spoilery things that I could go into that bother me about the film, but again, there were some things I really liked. I liked the fact that when things came back, they were a little bit more functional, and they had a little bit more of a range of, you know, what they were like. I actually liked how things came back better in this film than I did in the first film. It was a little bit more inconsistent the first time around, and this film did a little bit better job of bringing things back so that it felt like we could actually do something, you know. Felt like they were just, like, picking up life where they left off, whatever it is, whether it's an animal, a human, or whatever. They're just picking up where they last left off, and maybe there's something a little darker about them now. But so they're picking up life where they left off in a creepier, scarier way, and I did like that part. So I thought the acting was better, mainly Clancy Brown. Oddly enough, I kind of just liked his character more than anything else. Probably my favorite character out of the two films. Great at being an asshole. Great villain. Great at just kind of, like, leaning in, and like, every line he gave, I thought was great. He just, I don't know, it was just a really solid horror performance from him. He just makes for a great person to root against, and that made it good. It's a little disappointing in John Connor. I know Edward Furlong can do better performances, so Jared Rushton is not in this that much, but they're going to talk about him because he's the kid from Big. So yeah, that's about it. That's really all we need to talk about, all we need to know in this film. Audio description wise, there was one scene that I got a little lost in, and it was a scene that involved the three kids. It was John Connor, Drew, the other kid that befriends him, and the bully. We're all, like, on bikes. The bully's on, like, a motorbike, and I swear the direction that was given said that they were headed in opposite directions, but then it sounds like they're in the same direction, and it sounded like in the chase scene that they were describing that he was going after Drew, and then suddenly he's going after John Connor. And, like, how is this happening? I was confused during that sequence for, like, 15 seconds. I don't know. That was a very long sequence. There's a little sequence where they're sort of like being chased on bikes, but it just made it sound like he was chasing Drew, and then all of a sudden he's like, "Oh, nope, I got John Connor," and it said, "But I thought they went home in different directions. How were they even both in at a level of threat?" Anyway, very weird. That sequence just didn't work for me. As far as, does it describe the gore? Sure. Yeah. It is surprisingly not as gory as you would think, but there's some gore in here. It's there's some stuff in here that, yeah, the film doesn't need to go for it as much. But yeah, there's some stuff that's gory that happens. So I would say so. It's not that bad. It has, the first film was not well received, and the second film is not well received. I think the first one has like a 5.1 or something like that on IMDb, and the second one has like 4.9. That's about even. They're about the same film. There are things to take away that you like better, that I like better than the first film did, and there are things I like better the second film did. So they're almost equal. But it really doesn't make me think much of the director, because I think she threw out a lot of her own choices and then just directed it. But that usually comes from somebody else entering the franchise and saying like, no, I don't want to do it your way. Instead of the director being like, I was being stupid in the first film, and I'm not going to do it that way anymore. We're going to do it this way. It feels like it's directed by a completely different person. It's so bizarre. I was like, this is the same person. What? It feels like a totally different film. Without King shepherding it. I mean, there's no book that's Pet Sematary 2, so I don't know. Anyway, so because of that, there are enough pros and cons that basically I'm going with the same grade. I think these films are about equal. They're a little bit north of average, a little bit above average, I thought. They got some creepy shit that works. Not bad Halloween films. Gory, violent. Things do not work out well for people. And definitely better than some other Stephen King adaptations that I've seen that bored me to tears. So I'm going to give Pet Sematary 2 a C+. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And I do hope that you will continue to be with me as we continue to watch horror films throughout the month of October. Obviously, I'm doing this because Pet Sematary Bloodline is coming out, and I wanted to be fully up to date and prepared for Pet Sematary Bloodline. We'll see when that comes out. So I will. I have a website, MacMovieGuy.com. You can subscribe to me on X, Twitter, or X and Twitter, the same thing. Sorry, X, Instagram, and Threads. I'm Mac the Movie Guy. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org. It'll let you know what has audio description and where you can watch it. And you can go to the adna.org. That's the adna.org. It'll let you know who's narrating your favorite films and television series. That's it. I will go ahead and watch something else and see you guys on the other side. Is that creepy? Does scare you? Boo.